Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Chiefs briefing for the March 3rd, 2026 Braddock District Special Election. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today, and thanks for serving as a chief or an assistant chief in this special election, especially if you've served in multiple special elections with us. It's a busy time of year for us, so we appreciate your service, and we're looking forward to this March special election. We'll spend about an hour to an hour and a half going over some specifics to this election, some reminders, and then we'll get you sworn in as a chief or an assistant chief so you can then swear in your election officers on election morning. So bear with us, and we'll get through this morning. To start off, I'm happy to be presenting this briefing on behalf of our electoral board, which consists of our chairman, Kate Hanley, our vice chairman, Megan Challender. She is our newest member of the electoral board. As you may know, electoral boards in Virginia are required to be of a majority of the same party as the governor. With a new governor, we have one of our board members has rolled off of the board, and we have our new member, Megan Challender. So um, we thank Jeff Shapiro, our most recent board member, for his service to the voters of Fairfax County, and we welcome Megan Challender. Welcome to the electoral board. And we also have our secretary, Kevin Pinkney. We've also got our general registrar, Eric Spicer. Eric, are you here this morning? You want to say a couple words to our chiefs and assistant chiefs that we have here today?
I'd love to say a couple of words. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it. Thank you to our chiefs and assistant chiefs for your hard work. This is our fourth election this year, fourth special election. We're getting pretty good at this thing. But first, I want to say congratulations to Sean Rogers. After a very thorough process, Sean has been taking the position of election manager, very well deserved. I hope you will take the time to congratulate him. He's been with the department for about, gosh, more than 8 years. Off, he had no break, where he went to another jurisdiction, but we got him back. So we're very happy that Sean Rogers will be leading all the election officer functions, election manager functions. And so that's going to be fantastic. Thank you to our team who's been working tirelessly, been working almost nonstop for about almost a year because we've had so much elections that haven't been able to take vacations or time off. And thank you, of course, to you for your work, even though it'll probably be a small election. Every election is so critical. Every vote is so important. So thank you for everything you do. We will properly support you. This will be a fantastic briefing. And please let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric, and thanks for those kind words. I guess I'll introduce myself then. My name is Sean Rogers. As Eric said, I'm happy to serve as our election manager here in Fairfax County, and really appreciate the opportunity to work with all of our great election officers and ultimately serve the voters of this county in, like Eric mentioned, our fourth special election this year, and not the last one to go. So we are getting pretty good at this. Here today, we've also got Beth Methvessel, our clerk to the electoral board, as well as Arash Setayeshi, our election officer manager, Gene Tenson, our training and operations specialist, and two members of our training and operations team, Susan Burnell and Steve Wake. If you've been doing a couple briefings with us recently, hopefully these are some familiar names and faces, and we'll hear from them a little bit later. For our agenda, like I mentioned, I'm going to cover an overview of this election, talk about what's new, if anything, and then we're going to go through some reminders and some specific dates and deadlines for before Election Day, and then talk about opening the polls, things to consider during the day, a word on non-routine and provisional voters, and then talk about closing the polls. At the end, we'll administer the oath so that you'll be able to administer the oath election morning. And anytime throughout the briefing, if you have a question, go ahead and use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen to submit that to us. We'll be answering them live throughout, and then we'll take a selection of questions at the end to answer live for everyone. If we don't get to your question, or if you come up with a question later, you're always free to reach out by phone or email. We're happy to help. With that being said, let's get into it here. So about this election. Firstly, like every election, everything you'll want to know is in the Chief's notebook. So we'll be sending that to the printer very shortly here. And so you'll have that delivered in your black kit on Election Day, one for the chief and the assistant chief. And as soon as that is available, we'll be posting it online early next week. We recommend that you familiarize yourself with the Chief's notebook before Election Day so you can get your head around what are the steps and processes to keep in mind throughout the day. If you have a recent Chief's notebook from a recent special election or even going back to the November general election, That's largely still good for this election. With multiple back-to-back special elections, we're not really making too many changes to our processes and our procedures. So if you want to start reviewing that to make sure that you have your plan for election day, we'd recommend that you do that. In any case, though, we will be publishing a notebook for this election, which you'll be able to pick up in your black kit. We won't be doing a chief open house for this election just because it's a small special election. But the next time we have a countywide election, we will have that, and you'll have an opportunity to pick up your notebook early then for the next election. For this one, look forward to receiving it in your kit, and we'll be posting online very shortly. In that notebook, there are a number of one-page guides. These are checklists for basically every procedure. We have purple, green, yellow, and red for before election day, opening, during the day, and closing, as well as checklists for opening and closing for the chief. The idea here is that you don't really have to memorize, right? We don't want you to have to feel like you have to memorize and remember myriad different processes, dozens of different things. That's what the checklists are for. We recommend that you hand these out to your election officers before they have to get to these duties so they can review them. And then it's an easy checklist for them to follow any of these given tasks. So these are also posted online. You and the election officers in your precinct can go ahead and review them now. Just make sure to hand those out on election day. So what is this election? This election is a special election for a member of the school board in the Braddock district. So it's a Braddock district special election in just 29 precincts, the Braddock district of Fairfax County. The vacancy was created when the winner of a recent special election won a new seat, vacating the Braddock district representative for the school board. So we're filling that with this special election. There are two candidates on the ballot and one spot for a write-in. Couple things to keep in mind here is that this is a special election. So much like in primary elections, registered voters who are currently 17 but will be 18 by the next general election, so this November, are eligible to vote in special elections. They would be eligible if they are registered to vote, or they'd be eligible to do a same-day registration. So if you or anybody you know, anybody you know is 17-year-old is going to be 18 by election day, in November, this is an election that they'd be able to vote in, and so you may see some of those people come by and do an SDR. One other thing I want to mention is that by Virginia law, independent candidates, and this is an independent contest, do not appear with their party affiliation on the ballot. That's not new. That's nothing different. But I want to call it out because it's a change from some of our recent special elections where people might be used to seeing candidate parties next to them, the D or the R or anything like that. For independent contests and independent candidates, that does not appear. So that is the answer to that question if that's something that voters come to you with. In terms of what you'll be receiving on election day, you'll be receiving a lot of what you're used to. So 3 to 5 e-poll books, as well as 2 each of ballot marking devices, ballot scanners, and admin tablets. You'll also receive ballots for 15 to 25% of your registered voters and 5 to 7 total election officers. So a very similar allocation to what we had in December, because it's basically it's a very similar election. It's the same district and a similar scope of the ballot, just for different contests. You'll have your chief, your assistant chief, as well as 1 to 2 collector officers, depending on if you're co-located, and then all other election officers filling out that 5 to 7, depending on the size of your precinct and your expected turnout. Note that there are no provisional specialists assigned in this election or in any other small special election, because the number of provisionals that we would expect is just extremely small. So as in primary elections or any other small special election, the chief or the assistant chief will handle everything related to the provisional, including determining whether or not to issue a provisional like normal, but also all of the administrative portions of the process. So sitting with the voter as they fill out the provisional envelope, double checking it, inputting it into the provisional log, and so on. So just be mindful of that. And if you need to review the provisional chapter of the Chief's Notebook or any of the checklists, feel free to do that before Election Day. So let's talk about what's new. And the nice thing is this is a pretty small section because, as I mentioned, we don't want to change too many things for you guys. Election to election, we don't want to keep too many things different for us on our end. One thing I will mention is that there's just one pickup and return depot for Election Day. That's here at the Fairfax County Government Center. This isn't a huge a deviation for you all, hopefully, because Fairfax County Government Center is in the Braddock District. It might be the one that you would have chosen to pick up your materials from in any case. But just keep in mind that when you are picking up your materials, the Government Center is your only option for your choice of where to pick them up from. We'll give you the option to pick the time that you're coming on Monday, March 2nd. Arash will talk about that in our next section here. And you're returning everything here to the Government Center like normal. Another thing is that schools are in session during this special election. I'm going to let Beth talk a little bit more about FCPS and just polling places in general, things for you to keep in mind during a special election. Beth?
Thanks, Sean, and thank you all very much. It feels funny saying this is in the what's new section because it's almost like it isn't new because we did this before in December. Not a lot has changed. All the polling surveys have come back. I think only one location changed its room. So all of the entrances as well as the voting rooms for the March election will be the same as they were in December, save for one school. Once again, school is in session. I think hopefully especially our Braddock voters are getting used to that and will avoid the times that you see on the slide. And we will continue to encourage people, well, to understand that school is in session and it may take a little bit longer to vote if they choose to come during those times. As before, we will provide the large A-frame signs with the poster that indicates the voting entrance. That is, of course, different than November, but probably in most cases the same as November. And one last item is that all of the site inspection information is in Airtable. So these locations have been visited or contacted just to confirm that it will be the same as December or if there will be any little tweaks to those locations. So that information can be found in Poll Chief. So, and that's about it. Once again, I'm going to encourage those chiefs that serve in co-located precincts to go together to set up on Monday. Also, a reminder that it's best to choose a time to set up, especially in the schools, after 4 o'clock, just so that all of the students are out of the building. It'll be a lot easier, I think, if you are able to arrange setup time on Monday after 4. So that's it. Unless there are any questions, once again, any issues that come up, please reach out to the office. We're here to make your job easier. So I will toss it back to Sean.
Thanks, Beth. That's a great tip to try to miss or avoid the window where students are going home if you're doing a setup at your precinct and you're a school on the Monday before Election Day. Like she mentioned, everything that we know about your polling place, so any changes to the rooms or anything like that, is going to be live in your election officer portal, and any changes that we get will be updated and reflected there, especially because the schools give us a little bit of a different um, things to consider while they have students in session. They're understandably very protective of that. They want to be watching out for student safety and keep voters confined to the voting room and not wandering the school. And we respect that and we want to help them with that. Thanks, Beth. In terms of anything else that's new, well, we have a new EPB case, but it's not the first time you've seen it. It's just relatively new. So this is not a change for this election, but a reminder that we used to have one case per e-poll book. Now we just have one total case for the precinct. So hopefully your election officers, if they've served in our special elections, are getting used to this by now. But if they haven't served since November, this would be their first time seeing, second time seeing these new larger cases. For you, that means no banker's boxes to pick up full of several cases during pickup and return, during pickup. Just the one large case with the one seal. So there's only one seal to record for the one case. Makes sense, but just mentioning it here because it's a recent change for us. Similarly, like I mentioned, your election officers will have to assemble the EPBs in a way that they haven't always had to. So this includes attaching the plastic arm to the back of the plastic case. so that it can go into the base and stand at the check-in station, or one for the chief or assistant chief. So this is a pretty straightforward and easy thing to do. It's just not something that we've had to do in Fairfax County before. So if they have any issues with this, they can give us a call. We're happy to help. Or Rover can come help do this, but it's a pretty straightforward thing. Hopefully you won't have too many issues. So that's it. Like I promised, it wasn't too much for what's new. We just want to let you know about some considerations for your polling places, most specifically. I'm going to turn it on over here to Arash, who's going to talk about getting ready for Election Day and then talk about Election Day itself. Arash?
Thanks, Sean. Hi, everybody. Good to see a lot of familiar names and faces. And for those of you we haven't seen in a bit, welcome back. We'll get started. This is going to be a lot of the same things, but some things are new. So as always, if there's anything for you to take away from this section of the briefing, it's this slide. We'll be in touch with any relevant or important updates between now and through Election Day. So just please make sure that this number and our email are saved in your contacts and are whitelisted so that nothing gets sent to spam or junk mail folders. And if it hasn't already, some email services will adjust their filters based on variables we can't control. So we don't want you to miss any important updates. Similar to other elections we've had, your chief's page on the election officer portal will be available for you to track and keep track of your pre-election tasks. So hopefully this is a convenient one-stop shop. This is going to be available for chiefs, assistant chiefs, and reserves to see, although the chiefs are going to be the only ones who can check certain things off, but it's going to have very important deadlines and dates for each one of those steps that should be very familiar to many of you. So going into some of those dates, just to kind of bring them up a little bit, we are going to be sending out your information for your precincts by the end of the day today, so that you have, as well as your polling place information, so that you are able to reach out to your polling place as well as your roster. We have some deadlines on there just for you to be able to stay ahead of things, to account for any delays in having either your election officers RSVP or get back to you, or the polling place contacts to respond. So as you can see here, this will be also on the Chiefs page, broken down a little bit more granularly, but ultimately to stay ahead of everything because of a little bit of the compressed timeline, we want to make sure that if there are any delays, we can get ahead of them and not have it be too last minute. Thursday, the 26th, is going to be the day that we would want any supply pickup times and setup times to be set, so that we can be prepared for your pickups on Monday, the 2nd. As always, you'll also see a full list of your roster of election officers broken down by their positions with all their relevant contact information, including phone number and email addresses. In your Chief's notebook, you've always seen a template for generally a good way to reach out and information to share with them. While we will also be contacting the EOs on our own with any updates, it's important that they hear from you as soon as possible, so that any issues or concerns can be addressed. One thing that's very important about reaching out to your roster is so that you can make sure that you are recruiting people for the Monday setup. So as to have a successful setup, we will need you to go into the portal and select your pickup time, as we said, from just the one location here in Fairfax County Government Center. And you always want to make sure that you're going straight from here to your precinct. So please don't allow more than about an hour or two between those two pickup times and setup times. As I already said, we have the Fairfax County Government Center as the default depot for this election. Those of you who worked in December will remember it's very conveniently located. And so for a lot of your locations, the setup window will be from 3:30 to 6:30 if it's a school. Others that might have a different private or other location, you'll see more details in your portal regarding their windows. As always, we always want to remind you to review chapters 14 and 15 of your Chief's Notebook before Election Day. Aside from all the other chapters, this one is a very important one to be caught up on and familiar with, so that you don't need to be thumbing through it during any potential emergency that could happen. We are relying on you to act swiftly and purposefully as the main leader in addressing whatever may have occurred in your precinct. So now we are at after setup. It's election day, and we are going to be setting up. As a note, before anything else, you want to make sure during your Monday setup, you do not open the orange pouch that is going to be with your supplies. That has your equipment keys, your password card, and voter permit cards. This cannot be opened until election morning. Speaking of opening things, you want to make sure to open both your ballot scanners, even if you're planning on only using one. It's important that both of them are prepared and you press go to voting mode for both of them at 6 a.m., after which you may turn one of them around. If you want to primarily use one, that's fine, as voter turnout maybe increases, or if there's any potential issues with one of your machines, that's what your second machine is going to be there for. Please also make sure, even if you don't typically use it, the ballot marking device is set up and available and accessible to all voters. As you might also remember, there is a section for every position in your precinct in the evacuation section. Please make sure to review those emergency procedures, not just yourself, but also with your election officers. The best time usually is for in the morning after the oath. You are going over this, maybe make sure they know where to find these, and making sure that everyone is as prepared as you will be in case there's any need for an evacuation. There are 3 different numbers on the inside cover of your Chief's notebook. Each one of them for election day has a different purpose that we have set up. Aside from our general number, the 4735 general support number, we have 2 other numbers. One is for voter support. If there's any specific questions regarding voters, whether their eligibility, there's not a name pulling up, anything having to do with a ballot already being issued, or absentee mail ballot, something like that. Any concerns, SDR, provisional questions, please don't hesitate to right away call that number. Someone in our office can definitely help walk you through anything and resolve any of those concerns. Any technical issues, any equipment issues, please, first things first, call that tech support number. We've had instances where people are calling their rovers or calling our general support number. That just further delays the ability for you to have the most support, because then tech support can triage and dispatch a rover if needed. But a lot of times your rovers are going to maybe be busy or not able to answer right away. And we just, when time is of the essence, we want to make sure that there are no delays. One thing also just that we ask is to call us after 5:30 if any of your officers have not yet arrived. Please, we want to give them until 5:30 or so to show up, but it is important for us to know if they were tardy, make sure that they sign the oath. And there's a section in there for you to mark that they were tardy. But we also ask that you wait until around 6:30 or 7 a.m. before you call us regarding any supply issues that are not immediately urgent. If you feel like you might need more of anything that is not something that you're out of already, please wait until around 6:30 or 7 so that we can dispatch any reserves and handle any triaging, any immediate issues. And then we will be able to be happy to take your calls. All right, now we are well into election day, and this is a familiar thing for many of you coming up. 9 a.m., 12 p.m., and 3 p.m., we will be sending reminders for submitting your turnout surveys through your admin tablets. If there are any issues, we ask that you start earlier than 9, maybe get prepared to open it up and familiarize yourself with it for at least at 9 a.m. because we will be following up with you potentially later after those check-in points if we haven't seen a survey come in from you to make sure there's no issues. You may also ask an election officer to complete the turnout surveys if you are otherwise preoccupied. So make sure that there are other people besides yourselves that are familiar with what is needed and how to pull it up. In the first chapter of your Chief's Notebook, we also have a section regarding authorized representatives. There are several different sections for different types of authorized representatives, including our own electoral board members and rovers, as well as what level of access they have, and what things you may need to be aware of regarding their identification. So please don't hesitate to look at that ahead of time, and always reach out to our office if you have any questions about any of that. So just as a reminder for reporting an emergency, if it is of anything that is urgent in the sense of life-threatening or medical, please don't hesitate and just call 911 right away. If you are needing to address that, please direct one person to call 911 while you are assisting that individual or checking in. Afterwards, please give our office a call and let us know. We would rather not find out much later. We would like to, when things are at a stable point, to be notified, but obviously we don't want to delay any contact to emergency services if needed. One type of emergency that could happen is a medical emergency. There is a medical incident report form in your red emergency envelope. This is something that could have happened to a voter, an election officer, or anyone else inside your polling place within the 40-foot line. An example of this would be falls, or any other incident that we would be urging you to make sure to complete this before the person departs. On our end, we will have to follow up with them afterwards and check in on them. So we're relying on you to fill this out to completion as much as possible, as a part of your assisting the individual. And with that, I'm going to kick it back over to Sean to talk about non-routine and provisional voters. Sean?
Thanks, Arash. As Arash mentioned, hopefully a lot of this is very familiar to you, but I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about non-routine and provisional voters and some reminders for you. That first reminder is the resources that you have available to help you with non-routine voters. So in working through when to issue a provisional, sometimes it's a straightforward decision, sometimes you have to work through it. And there may be non-routine situations that you haven't seen before or that are rare. In any case, our Chief's Notebook, Chapter 8, has a whole chapter on non-routine and what ifs. So we have a handy list of some common or a list of non-routine situations that a voter could be in, and just the explanation there, as well as the text for every prompt that you might see on the e-poll book. So you don't have to wait for a voter to come in with that circumstance. It's right here in the Chief's Notebook. Additionally, printed on yellow paper is are the what ifs. This is a document produced by the Virginia Department of Elections that we modify slightly to match our voting equipment and procedures, and so it can fit in our notebook. This is the full A to Z for everything related to non-routine voters. So if you need the full explanation, it would be here in one of the corresponding what ifs. The notebook and the e-poll book prompts reference the what ifs and tell you which one to turn to. So you have varying levels of detail and explanation to help you get to the ultimate determination for any given non-routine voter. Speaking of e-poll book prompts, read them. They have information that tells you what's going on with that voter and tells you what to do. For every prompt, there is something that tells your election officer what to do. In almost every case, that's going to be to send them over to the chief or the assistant chief. And for the chief or assistant chief, it tells you on screen what the action to take is for this voter or what their options are. So with this example, say a voter whose absentee ballot has been pre-processed. That means they've returned it to us. We've received it, and it's been pre-processed already. It is going to be counted and included with the results. That means that for a voter who's shown up on election day, that they've already voted, and so their only option would be to vote a provisional ballot. And it tells you which reason to use. That's reason number 5. It tells you which section of the voter referral worksheet to use. It's section A. And tells you which what if number to refer to for even more information. So everything we try to provide you hopefully connects several different resources together so you can find the level of detail that you need to help get to the right determination for any given voter. The voter referral worksheet is a worksheet for you to use to get to those determinations. So this is a required form for any voter who's going to end up being a provisional voter. And that's hard to boil down before you know what the voter situation is. So that's broken into 4 categories, one being that they have any sort of absentee status on the poll book, one being that they're marked as already voted, one being that they are not on the poll book, so they're not registered, or they've moved. Their address on the poll book does not match the address that they are now saying they have moved to. or D, you're unsure. A lot of those, especially C, when a voter is not registered or is moved, you'll have to work through whether or not they can vote provisionally in your precinct or they need to go to another precinct. So the referral worksheet gives you a spot to write down any information you need to help determine something. Let's say you need to write down their address and what precinct corresponds to it, or you need to work through the moving conditions and write down things like congressional districts and that sort of thing. The whole front side is intended to be a worksheet to, like I said, tie together several different resources and give you a space to work through what's needed for this voter and what can you offer this voter. So it's broken into two sides. Like I said, that first side is for the chief or assistant chief to work through what is going to be the option I'm going to give for this voter. Either they're in an absentee situation, so I'm working through did they bring or not bring their ballot and what can I offer them? They've already voted, so there's something going on with their address, so they've moved or they're not on the poll book. And then section D, you're just unsure. You want to walk through something with our office, we're happy to help. It gives you a space to write down anything pertinent to that. On the backside, if you are indeed proceeding with a provisional, and keep in mind, not every one of these is guaranteed to be a provisional, but if you are proceeding with a provisional, it lets you mark which reason that provisional is going to be, whether a number one, SDR, or any other reason, so the all other reason codes. The other part of this, the backside of this worksheet is typically for the provisional specialist. It's a 12-step checklist to make sure that we follow every part of the process that we need to for a provisional voter. The chief or assistant chief will continue with this in the selection, and you can divide that up however best works for your precinct. If you want to switch off for here, that's fine to do too. Just make sure that two officers double check that the envelope is completed so that we have no missing information on the provisional ballot envelope that the voter is filling out. Talking about some common non-routine situations. If a voter is not registered on the electronic poll book, or they have moved into your precinct, so their address corresponds to your precinct, that is going to be a same-day registration. I want to make it very simple. A same-day registration is for a voter who's not registered in your precinct, but they live in your precinct, and that's the main thing you need to determine. So on your admin tablet, there's the precinct and address lookup. The PAL app lets you type in any address in Fairfax County or a neighboring jurisdiction and tells you which precinct it corresponds to. You can type that in and see if it corresponds to your precinct. If you're working through the moving conditions, you'll also need the congressional district, so it gives you that as well, and also tells you if you are co-located, so you can make sure that they're on the right side of their of the precinct. So it gives you everything you need, and I want to stress that for a same day registration, the most important thing is that they live in your precinct. Similarly, something that we see pretty commonly is a voter who brings their absentee ballot with them. They're allowed to surrender that ballot and vote normally to you. There's a whole what if telling you what to do for this one. And this is pretty straightforward. It's a clear exchange. If they don't want to vote that ballot, the one that they received by mail, they return it to you and they can vote normally in the precinct, and that goes in your envelope number 4. Of course, if they did not have their ballot, they're marked as being sent a ballot, their option is to vote provisionally there in the precinct that day because they don't have their ballot to surrender to you to vote normally. Those are two of our most common ones. Of course, there are many non-routine situations that are possible, but these are kind of the ones that you would expect most often, especially in a small election. These would be the ones that you see most typically. The provisional envelope has two sides to it. One side is for same-day registrations, and the other side is for all other reasons. It's important that you have the voter complete the correct side because the two sides contain different pieces of information. Different pieces of information are required depending on what the reason is that the voter is voting provisionally. So be mindful of that when you issue a provisional, that they're filling out the correct side. It's easy because the SDR side has a big SDR stamp on it. As a reminder, we provide you provisional overlays that you can place on top of the envelope to help you determine what is and isn't, or what might be missing. So, especially if a voter is filling out this envelope, there's a lot of visual noise, especially if they're filling this out with black ink. On the screen you see blue ink, but if that were black, it would be even harder to tell apart the sections that the voter has to complete and what is pre-printed on that ballot. So there are fields that have asterisks for the required information, but that's kind of hard that's easy to miss, right, for you and for the voter. So you can lay these overlays on top of the envelope once it's completed so that you can occlude or hide out all of that extra information and focus on just the required pieces. So that's both for the voter There are cutouts for their sections and cutouts for the election officer sections as well. So in the top right and the bottom left, you can place this on as your last step for your double check to make sure that you are good to go. Something that we can see pretty commonly is if a voter has check boxes to complete as they're continuing through their provisional ballot envelope, those are pretty easy to miss, right? You're writing out information and then a checkbox is, a change as you're continuing through. So some people may skip over that. Question number 3 on the SDR side of the provisional ballot says, or it asks the question to the voter, have they been convicted of a felony or judged mentally incapacitated and disqualified to vote? This is a required question, of which they would answer yes or no. If they do answer yes, a secondary follow-up question is required. So has that right to vote been restored? Yes or no? Our duty is to check that a voter has a complete answer here. So that would be a no to that first question, or a yes, and then an answer to that second question in the line right below. The overlay just highlights the no in the first box because that's what we see most commonly. But for this and for anything, I'd want to mention that if you see anything amiss when you place the overlay on, you still have to use your judgment to determine is anything amiss, and you can easily just lift it back off and have the voter make a correction if you see anything you're not expecting to see when you place that on top. The other common mistake I'd like to call out, separate from a voter completing the envelope, is for when you're issuing the provisional ballot itself. Reason number 6 on the all other reasons side, that's other, is rare or should be rare. Oftentimes, when we see this issued, it could have been another provisional reason. So say a voter is not on the poll book, but they say, well, I just registered 2 days ago. I don't know why I'm not showing up. Something a lot of people don't realize is that there is what's called a close of books before Election Day, where voters can't make a change to or change to their registration or register. It's pending throughout that time. So for all practical purposes, they'd have to do an SDR because they're not yet registered in your precinct. Similarly, if they don't have their ballot, that's they'd have to vote a reason number 4 with no ballot to surrender. Just think about it if there's another reason that applies, because number 6 should be rare. And the provisional log has a spot to record if a voter, say, insists on voting when you've determined their eligibility and they don't want to accept any other option, go to another precinct if that's their precinct or something like that. You can tell us what happened. And you're always welcome to call our office to work through anything that you have any degree of uncertainty with, or you just want to double check something. We're happy to help. We'll be standing by. Our voter support line is happy to look up anything for a voter, say their registration status, or just help you through anything to clarify that. But number 6, that should be an exceedingly rare category. It's not your catch-all category. Give it another look and see if something else applies in these cases. Finally, the last step of a provisional ballot is the ballot going into the provisional bag. We have a green provisional bag for your precinct that you will open up and seal at the beginning of the day. And once it's sealed, it is sealed throughout the day all the way through closing. So before you insert a provisional ballot envelope with its completed provisional ballot into this bag, make sure you've logged it in the provisional log. Something I'd recommend is to make a little check mark in the top right corner, a little unobtrusive check mark as a little visual reminder for yourself that you've logged it. Or if you don't have too many, maybe it won't be that hard to remember. You can just complete the whole process in one fell swoop. But make sure that this is the last thing that you're doing, because once it's in the provisional bag, you won't be able to retrieve it until closing. Of course, we're always happy if you call and say, hey, did I log this one? We're happy to tell you that because we can see on our end. But this is the last step of the process. This is the place where provisional ballots go throughout the day. And then, of course, during the end, Gene will talk about what you do with those then. So that's a quick overview of provisionals and a reminder for SDRs and provisionals. I'm going to turn it on over to Jean here. She's going to talk about closing the polls and some reminders there. Jean?
Thanks, Sean. Okay, you have made it through the day, 13 hours of voting. We hope you had plenty of voters to keep you busy during that time. And one of the things you can do to really help your closing go more smoothly is to make sure that you've prepared for this part of the day. You have a master checklist for the chief in the closing chapter of your notebook, and it goes over how to prepare. One of those things you want to be sure to do is hand out those closing guides during the day, during a slow time, maybe in the afternoon, and let people get familiar with what they're going to be doing at closing. So now at 7 o'clock, you've announced the polls are closed. Take a deep breath, kind of gather yourself. You're going to get through this just fine. You did it in December, and you've got this under control. And if anything goes sideways, you've got us on programmed in your phone, and you're going to give us a call. The first thing to do is close your scanners. This is typically done by the same people who opened them. Start by closing the scanner that has the highest public count first. In a small election like this one, you're likely to have only used one scanner. So that's the one that you're going to close. Finish closing that scanner before you start the other one. That way you have that second scanner available as a backup. Just a reminder, don't get tempted by, let me close that other scanner early before the polls close to save myself time. No, you need to keep them open all the way through 7 p.m. Then after that, go ahead and start your closing process. Again, we like to harp on this every time, but don't pull those flash drives until the scanner has completely shut down. If they come out too soon, if you pull them out too soon, the data on them can be corrupted, and that's going to cause a whole lot of issues. So let's not even go there. I know that the election officers, the collector officers, excuse me, are chomping at the bit. They want to hurry up and get out of here, but they'll be okay. They've got their own little closing checklist to do. They'll be emptying the Dropbox, stuff like that. They'll be fine. And if anything goes wrong with your scanner during the closing, just call tech support. Don't try to figure it out yourself. There are reasons why we want to get the closing tapes. There are reasons why we want everything shut down nice and tidy. So give us a call and we'll make sure that we get you up and running as quickly as possible. Speaking of those flash drives again, we've color coded them to make this as hopefully as foolproof as possible. You're going to be handed 4 drives, 2 from each scanner. There's a purple one and a white one inside of each scanner. The purple ones go into the purple pouch. The white ones go into the white envelope number 7. The purple pouch is going to be carried back to the government center by the collector officers. That white envelope is going to go to the courthouse right after the election. So it's super important that you as chief double check that the right flash drives are in the right place. This is part of your checklist, not part of the collector officer's checklist. And do note that the zip tie for the purple pouch goes through that grommet, but it also goes through the zipper pull as well. That way no one can actually open that zipper because it's been sealed. Part of the closing is getting those provisional ballot envelopes and SDR ballot envelopes out of the green bag that they've been just sitting in all day long. These will be going back with collector officers along with the purple pouch and the trip block bag. The people who are closing the provisional bag, they have their own checklist. They're going to go through this and sort them into piles for SDR and non-SDR. Shouldn't take too long to count them for this smaller election. Even if you don't have any non-SDR provisionals, or if you have no SDRs, you're still going to seal up and mark on these envelopes at just the same. You're going to send us back all your envelope 1As, even if you don't use them. And the reason for that is so that we know affirmatively that you didn't have any. So we can see, oh, it's an empty envelope. So that we get that question every election. The collector officers are going to bring back 3 categories of things. We were just mentioned the green envelopes 1A, SDR, non-SDR. So there will be 2 of those. Then you've got the purple pouch and then the trip block bag with any Dropbox ballots and the chain of custody form that goes inside. Just a little tip for that on your collector officers. This is a common mistake is there's a receipt strip that's on the top of that bag. You want to tear that strip off before they seal the bag. This is part of their closing guide, so if they follow the steps, they should get it right. But just in case, you might want to remind them. And even if you have, just like with the 1As, even if you have no Dropbox ballots, fill out the form, put zeros, put the form inside the bag, tear off the strip and then seal it. So it's the same process of you're letting us know we didn't get any Dropbox ballots for this election. If you have co-located precincts, collector officers have double of everything. So 2 purple pouches, 4 green envelopes, and 2 trip lock bags. If in a co-located precinct, you might have shared a Dropbox, only one of them will have all the ballots in it. You're not going to like split them up or anything. So one bag's going to have ballots with a form saying the number. The other one's going to have the form, but it's going to say 0. That way, everybody knows what the deal was there. The poll book case is bigger now, as Sean showed you. And if you're like me, maybe you are, I don't think visually at all. So if somebody says, here, pack this case, I'm like, where does everything go? We've got a special guide just to show you where to put each item into the poll book case. You'll find it easier to lift this case if you pack everything towards the middle. That kind of distributes the weight centers the weight into the middle rather, and that just makes it a little easier to carry that case around. The most important document of the day is your statement of results, your SOR. So we made the SOR helper to make this literally a breeze for you. As long as your election officers have completely filled out that closing numbers worksheet, the one with the red header on the left, you have everything you need to do the SOR helper. If there's some blanks on that closing numbers worksheet, that means somebody didn't quite finish their job. Hand it back to the person who should have filled in that number and have them do that for you. The SOR helper is on either of your admin tablets or both. You open it up and start plugging in the numbers from the closing numbers worksheet. It walks you through each step one at a time. If anything doesn't work correctly for you, just give us a call. We can walk you through it. We can help you troubleshoot it and get you done, get you through the process. Once the SOR helper is finished, it shows you an image of the SOR, and all you need to do is copy the numbers from the screen to both copies of the paper SOR. Just doing the SOR helper does not finish the job. You still have to fill out the paper forms. And then again, double check that there's no missing numbers anywhere on this form, just like with the closing numbers worksheet. We occasionally get SORs back after the election that were only filled in on one side or weren't even filled in at all. Look them over before you put them in envelope number 2. Make sure they're complete. Make sure everybody printed their name and signed their name as well. After you've done the SOR, you've probably got 1 or 2 people who have been tasked with packing the cage. There is a 1-page guide for that, like there is for everything. People who don't pack the cage according to the guide sometimes do things that are a little more than a little dangerous. That red arrow shows where there are wireframes sticking out of the cage itself, which is super hazardous for the people who load and unload these onto the delivery trucks after the election and at our warehouse. Please don't do this. We don't want anyone getting hurt. If they follow the packing guide correctly for the gray cage, you'll see that these signs stay on their frames and they're loaded to the side of one of the scanners. Also part of packing up the cage after you've signed the security log, please remember to do that, by the way, is making sure that you get the thing locked. And part of that is there are bolts, slide bolts, one at the top, one at the bottom. They can be tricky to do. If you have trouble with that, give our tech support number a call. They can help you. They've got some tricks they know how to do to get those doors to align correctly so that you can get those bolts engaged at the top and bottom. Because if you don't, then you end up with a situation where those doors can come open. And in this photo, you can see that the blue bag is actually slid down in front of the scanners. We don't want things falling out. We don't want machines getting damaged. Please just follow the packing guide, and if you run into any difficulty, we can walk you through getting it fixed. All right, your helpful election officers, they have packed your car for you, which is, by the way, one of their jobs is to help you get that stuff in the car. You're going to be bringing back 5 things: a black kit, the e-poll book case, your box of voted ballots, your box of unvoted ballots, and the chief supply return form. Yet another form. This one's really important, like all of our forms actually. This is a chain of custody form. It's a security form. It's you, the chief, are bringing us this number of poll book cases, this number of boxes of ballots that are voted, and the number of boxes that are unvoted. If you haven't finished filling this out, and you're coming back to the government center like everyone is for this election, you're going to be asked to drive off to the side to finish filling that out so that we don't hold up the people who have got their paperwork in order when they drive up. So please drive carefully to the government center, and you're going to be going to the same place that you did when you will be picking up your supplies on Monday, March 2nd, which is in the loading dock. And we'll go back to Sean now so that we can get some final reminders, Q&A, and your oath.
Thanks, Gene. I'll be brief here. We don't have too much to recapitulate. Just remember, this is a special election. If you're in an FCPS facility, schools are in session, so be sure to work with the facility for access and for anything that they are concerned about for the space that you're in. One other thing I'll mention is to be sure to complete those turnout surveys throughout the day at 9, noon, and 3. We're not just being persnickety. Those turnout surveys let us know how you're doing and let us know that you're not going to run out of ballots. We never expect you to run out of ballots because we've made sure to supply you with enough, but that lets us kind of know what's going on out there and make sure that you are all good to go on your supplies. Finally, be sure to be on top of coordinating with your polling place and your election officers as in these 2 weeks leading up to Election Day here. With that, I'm going to administer the election officer the oath here for Election Day. Then you'll be able to administer the oath on election morning. So if you would please hold up your right hand and repeat along with me here. I do solemnly swear that I will perform the duties for this election according to law and the best of my ability, and that I will studiously endeavor to prevent fraud, deceit, and abuse in conducting this election. Congratulations, you're now sworn in to serve as a chief or an assistant chief in the March 3rd Braddock District special election. And like I mentioned, you'll be able to swear in your election officers on Tuesday, March 3rd as well. After this briefing later today, you're going to receive a link by email to complete a short quiz to confirm your attendance here. That's going to be due Friday, this coming Friday, February 20th. Go ahead and complete that as soon as you get it. It shouldn't take you but just a minute to confirm that you attended and watched the briefing here. And we'll be following up with you, if we don't hear from you. So go ahead and take care of that as soon as you can. We're going to jump into Q&A here for a second. If you have any lingering questions, go ahead and enter them using the Q&A feature here in Zoom. If we don't get to your question, or if you come up with one later, like I mentioned at the start of this briefing, you can reach out to us by email at electionofficers@fairfaxcounty.gov or give us a call at the number listed on screen. Our normal office number, 703-324-4735. We're always happy to help in these 2 weeks leading up to Election Day. Before we jump into questions, though, I want to ask Flo and Ben for an update on our early voting and absentee by mail numbers so we can get a frame of reference for how this election is going. Flo, do you have any updates to give us?
Hi, Sean. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thanks again for serving for this special election. Quick update on early voting. We've been open since Friday, January 16th for the Braddock election. And as of Friday, we've had 302 people vote in person here at the Fairfax County Government Center. On this Saturday, we will open a second location, Burke Library. Weekday hours there for early voting will be 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. And we are also open weekdays here at the Government Center, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And then both locations will be open on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Early voting ends on February 28th. So if you haven't voted already, there's still time to do so, especially if you are not serving at your home precinct. So please come see us either at Burke Library or here at the Government Center. Back to you, Sean.
Thanks, Flo. That's a great reminder to vote in this special election because if you are not in your precinct on election day, you want to make sure that you've already voted. So great time to come in and vote early and see how they've got it all set up. Ben, do you want to tell us how the absentee by mail process has been going?
Sure, I can absolutely do that. We mailed a little over 8,000 ballots for this election. We've gotten about 2,400 of them back. That's about 30% return rate. We don't expect more than about a 50% return rate for this one, so we've gotten more than half of what we expect back. Do be on the lookout for ballots that come in on election day, especially folks that are bringing them to exchange. We have one, two, three, four separate elections with ballots floating around out there. So as you're looking around, just make sure that you're checking the right ballot that folks are bringing back. And we expect a few more on election day drop boxes than normal. We've been telling a lot of folks the last few elections to go ahead and use a drop box, especially if it's the last week to return your ballot. And the number ticked up fairly dramatically in terms of percentage in the last couple of elections for election day drop boxes. So you may see more than you usually do there. Otherwise, we're chugging along and we'll be processing until the Friday after the election. If y'all have any questions, just let me know.
Thanks, Ben. And that's a good reminder to double check that the ballot that someone brings to exchange to surrender to vote normally in the precinct is a ballot for this election. If you go back to even December of 2025, that was another Braddock District special election. We had December, January again, February, and now March. Somebody may have grabbed the wrong ballot off of their table at home and brought it in. They do have to exchange a ballot for this election to be able to vote on machine normally for this election. So appreciate that reminder. And the ballots are clearly indicated, right? Is there any special marking they should look out for on these ballots?
They are clearly indicated. Obviously, the option of opening the ballot and making sure that the physical ballot is correct is always there. Let me see if I can get this out of the... All right, let me turn my blur off momentarily. Let's see. Do not blur the background. Hey, there we go. Ignore my messy desk. So on this Braddock, you can see we have the title of the election and the date on the top. This is the outer envelope here with the dark blue. And then the return envelope also has an S on this one, not a B like the last one, but an S, as well as the election title information. That doesn't mean you don't go in and check the ballot just to make sure it's correct, but those are some easy indicators just to make sure that you're looking at the right one.
Thanks for showing that to us, Ben. So now let's move on to our Q&A section here. Susan, do we have any questions to go through?
So we have just a couple questions. I think everybody's pretty up to speed on what's going on. So if you have a reserve chief on your roster who is acting as a regular election officer, can they help you with the provisionals and SDRs?
That's a good question. So I said earlier that provisionals and SDRs are going to be handled by the chief and the assistant chief. If you have a reserve chief who's on your roster, that would be okay for them to help you out with a provisional or an SDR because they've received or gone through the training to help work through these situations. So whatever works best for you in your precinct in determining what's the best workflow, what's the current kind of flow of your precinct, a reserve chief or assistant chief would be able to help you out with that if you so deem, if you think that's necessary. They're able to jump in just can't have a regular election officer do that because they've not had any additional training beyond that. It would be something that would be unfamiliar to them. So great question. Thanks for that.
And then another question is, since we don't have party affiliations listed on the ballot, if a voter asks one of our election officers or us what their party affiliation is, can we answer that question if we know?
That's a good question. So, as you may know, that political parties don't appear on the ballot by these candidates, but the candidates are welcome, or they can do anything outside of the ballot. They can do anything out in the world and obtain or seek out the nomination of a party or anything like that. Uh, Virginia code requires that the ballot only show identification for federal, statewide, and General Assembly offices. So there is no party affiliation on the ballot for these officers, and we can't provide any other information than what's on the ballot for this or for any contest. If somebody asks us more information about candidates as nonpartisan election administrators and election officials, it's not our role to tell them more about the ballot that could bias them in any way. The explanation for the fact that the political party abbreviations do not appear on ballots does exist on a sign to help you out if you need something to refer to for election officers. You will have a sign that you can have that may be easiest to put near the check-in station or near you in case you need to come, in case you need to discuss that with any voters who are confused or want to make an issue out of that. You can let them know that political party identification does not appear on the ballot for any office there in the precinct, and you can't help them out any further. Now, a voter is welcome to do any research they need on their phone, in the voting booth, or anything like that if they need to refer to anything else when they make their decision for whom to vote. But that's a great question. You can't provide that information, even if it's something you may have the context for outside of the precinct.
And then one last question for Jean. When you're doing that closing and you have your trip lock bag, tear off the receipt before you seal the envelope, what happens to that receipt?
Thanks, Susan. It is a seal, even though it's not a zip tie seal. So as a seal, it goes into your envelope number 7 with all of your other zip tie seals you've been accumulating during the day.
All right, and that's all the questions we have.
All right. Thank you for joining us this morning, and thank you for serving in the election on March 3rd. As I mentioned, if you come up with anything else in the next 2 weeks, reach out to us. We're happy to help, and we thank you for your time this morning. We thank you for your service as an election officer, and we hope you have a great day. Be sure to take that quiz when we send it out to you, and have a great election. Thanks, everyone.